Vendor lock-in. It's this huge strategic risk in the tech world, but it always feels a little fuzzy, right? Hard to nail down. You get that gut feeling that it's a problem, but how do you actually measure it? How do you take that vague worry and turn it into something solid you can use to make a decision? Well, that's what we're going to do today. Let's open up the toolbox.
All right, before we get started, just a quick but really important heads up. This is Module 6 of a much larger 10-part series on how to research vendor lock-in. It's all based on some amazing work from Virtualization Options LLC. Now, we're covering general principles here, which are super useful, but please remember, this isn't legal advice. For your specific situation, you'll always want to chat with a legal pro who knows the ropes in your part of the world. So this is really the heart of the matter, isn't it? How do you take this abstract idea of lock-in and make it real? When you have to stand in front of your team or your boss and say, hey, I think this vendor is a risk, you've got to have more than just a hunch. You need facts, you need data, you need a process you can stand behind. So how do we do that?
We do it by using the right tools for the job. Look, a lot of this does come down to good judgment and experience, for sure, but there are specific frameworks, actual tools that can give your research structure. They make it consistent, they make it thorough, and most importantly, they make it defensible. So let's get that toolbox open and see what we've got.
First up, we've got the foundation for any solid evaluation, the assessment checklist. I want you to think of this as the architectural blueprint for your entire investigation. It's what makes sure you don't miss any of the important stuff.
What's really key here is the idea of vectors. See, lock-in isn't just one thing. It's sneaky. It can come at you from all these different directions at once. You might have technical lock-in from a special API, or contractual lock-in from a crazy licensing agreement, or even strategic lock-in, just because their software is so tangled up in how you do business. A really good checklist forces you to look at every single one of those angles.
So why is a simple checklist so powerful? Well, imagine you're looking at two different vendors. It's so easy to get wowed by a cool demo from one of them and completely forget to ask the same tough questions you asked the other one. A checklist keeps you honest. It provides consistency. And later, when it's decision time, you're not just going with your gut. You have the paperwork, the documentation, to build a rock-solid case for why you made the choice you did.
Okay, next tool. A checklist is awesome for getting your process right, but how do you get the C-suite to really sit up and listen to a technical risk? Simple. You translate it into the one language everybody understands: money. And that's exactly what the migration cost calculator is for.
Now look, we're not talking about a crystal ball here. This isn't about getting a perfect number down to the last penny. It's about building a solid model to figure out the ballpark cost of what it would take to switch vendors. It takes that fuzzy idea of high switching costs and slaps a price tag on it.
And this is exactly why it's so brilliant. The moment you can walk into a meeting and say, hey, just so we're all clear, leaving this vendor could cost us somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 million and take 18 months, that abstract risk suddenly feels very, very real to everyone in the room.
So what are we even calculating here? Well, it's way more than just paying your engineers. What's the cost of your systems being down? Think about employee retraining. What does it cost to pull your entire team out of their regular jobs to learn a new system? And here's the kicker, the one people always forget: opportunity cost. Every single brilliant engineer you have working on a painful, frustrating migration is an engineer who isn't building your company's next big thing. That cost is massive.
All right, our last tool is all about verification. You know how every single vendor claims their platform is open? It's the biggest buzzword out there. So how do you actually know if it's true? You use a standards repository. This is your official litmus test for what's genuinely open and what's just marketing fluff.
The thinking here is pretty simple. Don't just take their word for it. Go to the source. If a vendor says they follow the OpenAPI specification, you don't just smile and nod. You go to the actual website for the OpenAPI initiative, pull up the real documentation, and you check their work. It's like that old saying, trust but verify.
So what are these repositories really? Just think of them as the official rulebooks for tech. They aren't run by any one company. They're run by independent groups like the CNCF or the OpenAPI initiative. By comparing what a vendor is telling you to these official rulebooks, you can pretty quickly see if they're actually building open, interoperable tech, or if they've just slapped a fresh coat of open paint on the same old proprietary system.
And that brings us to the most important point of all. None of these tools, not the checklist, not the calculator, not the standards, is some kind of magic bullet. They don't replace the need for your team's expertise and professional judgment. What they do is empower it. They give it structure, they back it up with data, and they give you the evidence you need to make your expert opinion more rigorous and way more defensible. So there you have it, our research toolbox. A checklist to make your process systematic, a cost calculator to turn abstract risk into cold, hard cash, and standard repositories to cut through the marketing hype. These tools won't make the decision for you, but they will absolutely help you make a better one. The only question left is, which one are you going to start with?